Chapter 3. The Law of Perception. One has not only an ability to perceive the world, but an ability to alter one's perception of it. More simply, one can change things by the manner in which one looks at them. Tom Robbins. Even cowgirls get the blues. There was a woman named Erica in my cluster at business school. While she did spend some time with my circle of friends, more often than not she stuck to herself, which I took as her being aloof. Erica was 5 feet 11 inches tall and gorgeous. In fact, she'd done a stint as a model. She was extremely smart, and had held a prestigious financial job before business school. And on top of all that, she was rich. Not just a little rich, but extremely wealthy. The way she held herself apart from everyone seemed to indicate that she thought she was better than the rest of us. Although I tried a few times to engage her in chit-chat, she always seemed to blow me off. So after a while, I just left her alone. Except for the smart part, she was the exact opposite of me. I was 4 feet 10, gregarious and social, and didn't grow up with buckets of money. Maybe, I figured, I'm just too different from her for her to have any interest in talking to me. For spring break that first year, I organized a trip to Jamaica. I would only be able to afford the trip myself if I sold all 14 slots for it, so I promoted it heavily within my cluster, hoping all my friends would be able to go. And who do you think brought me the first check to hold a spot? Yup, Erica. Ugh, I thought. I have to spend my hard-earned vacation with someone who treats me like I'm invisible. Not my idea of fun. To make matters worse, the final tally was 10 guys and 4 girls. So because of the way the accommodations were arranged, all of us girls would be sharing a room together. Terrific, I thought. So now I'm really stuck sharing my vacation with this snobby rich girl I have nothing in common with, and who looks down her nose at me. Or at least that was my perception of the situation going into it. During my years of coaching, I frequently heard clients express sentiments such as, "I don't see myself that way," and "I can't understand what I did to give them that impression." Usually it was because my clients were meeting with some workplace resistance when trying to advance their careers. What is it that creates a disconnect between how we perceive ourselves and how others perceive us? Understanding how our own perceptions are formed can give us some insight into how others form their perceptions of us. Once you get a handle on how perceptions are created and sustained, you can be more proactive about making the impressions you want to make and projecting your value outward so that other people recognize it. When you project your authentic self, people will respond to and connect with it. Perception is a core component of likability. What's your impression? I may not have told you this yet, but I am always right. And so are you, from your perspective. We've already seen in Chapter 2 that our perceptions of ourselves are our realities about ourselves. And of course, the external corollary of this is true too. Our perceptions of others are our realities about them. This is the law of perception. Whatever impressions a person gathers of you, as he consciously or unconsciously interprets your words and actions, become his reality about you. What we perceive is what we believe to be true. Although we can't completely control other people's perceptions of us. After all, we bring our own unique mix of beliefs, personality, life experiences, and biases to bear when we form opinions about people. We can definitely impact these perceptions in positive rather than negative ways. One of the most important things to remember is that perceptions typically form quickly, within the first few minutes of meeting someone. It often takes only moments to have an instinctual reaction to someone and draw conclusions about that person. It is not that we form quick judgments intentionally. It is simply a natural way that people process new situations and encounters. It is possible for these perceptions to change over time, of course, as two people come to know each other more fully. But first impressions are powerful. This is why the law of perception has a sublaw, the law of first impressions. It is far easier to make a good first impression than to change a bad one. As human beings, we love to be right. If my first impressions of you are that your energy level is tepid, more often than not I'll experience you that way on future occasions, fitting subsequent impressions of you into this tepid perception. I am proving myself right. It may take a while for me to change my perception of you enough to see that the real you is actually quite dynamic. So why not start off letting the real you come through? First impressions are critical. Choose your perceptions. As it turned out, that spring break trip back then wasn't at all bad. In fact, it was phenomenal, in large part because Erica turned out to be great. During our first day in Jamaica, we were both lounging on rafts in the pool when the heavens opened up and it began to pour. We both started laughing at how sudden and dramatic the tropical storm was, and then we looked at one another, floating around in the rain, and laughed even harder. The setting was so completely different from the normal business school grind we'd been accustomed to that we were able to relax and let down our guard. We wound up having a fantastic time bumming around together during the trip, learning all about our very different upbringings, past relationships, and more. And by the time we got back to school, we were bona fide buddies. I came to realize that my first impressions of Erica had been wrong, and I'd allowed these first impressions to harden into perception. Erica wasn't actually snotty and aloof. To my unbelievable surprise, she was shy. Once she came out of her shell, she was compassionate and warm, and she even had a rebellious streak. My perception of her had been totally off base. There can be many reasons why our perceptions of people differ from who they really are, why authenticity and likability get lost in translation, as it were. Let's look at 3 of them. Different styles, inconsistent communications, self-doubt. Different styles. We all have predispositions that come naturally to us. It can be as simple as which eye you close when you wink. There's no correct eye to use. It just comes down to what feels instinctively normal. Likewise, we all have natural innate tendencies when it comes to how we move through the world, how we communicate and interact with others, how we solve problems and make decisions. We all have different styles. Most diagnostic tests break down different personality types or styles into 4 main groups. Some, such as Myers-Briggs, divide the types even further, but groupings of 4 are basic enough to easily grasp, yet substantive enough to contain useful information. When I'm working with clients on determining their styles, I use an online assessment called the Needling Brain Instrument, NBI, that breaks things down into 8 dimensions. You can take the full assessment by going to www.11lawsoflikability.com/assessment. Enter the code BOOK11 to receive a discount on the assessment. However, everyone can get a general sense of basic style types by answering a few questions and applying the answers to a 4-part matrix. One axis of the matrix represents how you make decisions, and the other represents what influences those decisions. Your natural tendencies, objective thinker or subjective thinker, rapid responder or considered responder, determine the category you fall within: straight line, zigzag, angle, or circle. Live the law. Understand you. Plot your style. Figure out where you fall in the style matrix by charting your natural inclinations. You may not exactly match each aspect of a trait description. In each pair of traits, just choose the one that most closely describes you. 1. How do you make decisions and contribute to conversations? Fast. You are decisive, quick to share your opinions, and animated during discussions, contributing frequently and using large gestures to express yourself. You tend to speak quickly and be direct. Considered. You think about your options before settling on your opinion. You listen to other people's input before offering your thoughts. You are more reserved in your gestures and facial expressions than many of your colleagues. You speak in a deliberate way and choose your words carefully. 2. What influences your decisions, and what's your comfort level with self-disclosure? Objective. You focus on facts and figures, historical data, and quantifiable information. You tend to take a systematic approach to problem solving and hone in on details and specifics. You are less likely to share personal information about yourself than many of your colleagues, and you are less comfortable sharing your emotions. Subjective. You make decisions by tuning in to what other people think about the situation, what the group energy is like, and what your gut intuition is telling you. You tend to generalize information and look at the big picture. You are open with your feelings and comfortable with emotion. Plot your preferences in the style matrix to determine if you are a straight line, a zigzag, an angle, or a circle. Be aware that you have qualities of every style in you, and that the matrix is meant to help you determine your dominant communication style. Read about the priorities and preferences of the other styles as well, and see if you can come up with people you know who fit those styles. I bet some people come to mind quickly. Think about how the different communication styles might impact how you interact with people who don't fall into your same category. If someone is fast and objective, they're a straight line. Their priority is to get it done. Their description is logical, rational, pragmatic, focused, and concrete. They value performance and direct and concise communication. They are misperceived as arrogant and bossy, and someone who thinks they are always right. If someone is fast and subjective, they are a zigzag. Their priority is to get creative. They are imaginative, visual, future-focused, and intuitive. They value experimenting, taking risks, and high energy. They are misperceived as idealistic, impractical, and too talkative. If someone is considered an objective, they're an angle. Their priority is to get it right. Their description is organized, detail-oriented, systematic, habitual, and efficient. They value punctuality, thoroughness, and historical proof. They are misperceived as rigid, uptight, and boring. If someone is considered and subjective, they're a circle. Their priority is to get consensus. Their description is sociable, tolerant, empathetic, supportive, and perceptive. They value loyalty, cohesion, consensus, and relationships. They are misperceived as too nice, a pushover, and overly sensitive. Of course, we all have tendencies that show up in other categories. I'm a zigzag, but my obsession with being punctual makes my husband kid me about my angle-ish inclinations. The point of the matrix isn't to determine your style in a monolithic, unequivocal way, but to point out your dominant type and general tendencies. Understanding your own style and learning how to pick up on the styles of others helps you manage how you are perceived, as well as your perceptions of those around you. Good connections aren't dependent on falling into the same style quadrant. Somewhat surprisingly, the best and most innovative collaborations are most likely to happen between people whose styles are diagonally opposite on the matrix. Because their approaches to problem-solving are so different, they tend to balance one another well. For example, thinking outside the box zigzags and detail-oriented angles often complement one another. Likewise, deadline-driven straight lines and consensus-building circles working together can be extremely productive. Opposite styles may have the most potential for conflict, but they can also have the most potential for results. However, any mix of styles can connect well. The key is to reduce misperceptions by staying aware of style differences and using them as the basis for playing to one another's strengths, not augmenting weaknesses until they crowd out everything else and solidify into misperceptions. You can really develop an appreciation for other people whose styles are not the same as yours, especially when they may be able to do things you can't, and what's more, don't want to do, and vice versa. That's why working with people with differing styles can create powerful connections and collaborations. By learning to pick up on the clues people give about their styles, you can better understand their priorities and what drives their actions. Then you can adjust your communication tactics so that as other people form their impressions of you, they're not jarred by clashing style differences, but rather can see through any differences to the real you. Understanding where other people fall in the matrix also helps you cut through your own possible misconceptions of them. By the same token, understanding where you fall in the style matrix helps you stay aware of the clues you are putting out there for other people to see. How do those actions impact how you are perceived? And are you creating the best impression of your authentic self? Live the law. Understand others. Look for clues. Once I was pitching a program on communication styles to the head of a New York City government agency, and in the middle of the conversation, the director stopped and challenged me. "So what's my style?" he asked. I looked at him and looked around his office to confirm what I had already observed about him. There were plants and family photos throughout the office, indicating a nurturing circle style. But he was wearing a purple shirt with a funky tie, and his papers were organized not in file drawers, but in various slightly disheveled stacks on every flat surface in the room, demonstrating a dominant out-of-the-box zigzag approach. I told him I thought he was a zigzag, which is what he'd already determined he was too. He hired me on the spot. Simply by using our normal powers of observation, we can often identify a person's dominant style. Take this quiz to practice differentiating styles based on what you observe. Test your ability to differentiate styles. Directions. For each description, choose the style that most closely matches it. 1. Whose office is this? A. There are plenty of comfy places to sit, a big assortment of pens on the desk, and lots of artwork on the walls. B. Neat, labeled files are stacked in holders. There's a clean, well-organized desk. There's a staff kitchen where teas, coffees, and utensils are separated into clearly marked drawers. C. Furnishings are spare, but enough chairs are assembled for small groups to have discussions. Walls are bare, save for the functional whiteboards marked with tasks, directives, and goals. D. Bulletin boards are covered in colorful notes and inspirational paraphernalia. A cluttered desk has some sort of puzzle-type toy on it, and there's a basketball hoop on the back of the door. 2. Who is most likely to ask these questions? A. What's the first step? Do you have a plan? How do you want to approach the task? B. What's the goal? What are your resources? What is your deadline? C. Who is involved? Whom do I get to work with? How does the other team feel about this? D. Why are we doing it this way? Can you envision the process? Are you open to trying things differently? 3. Who would probably exhibit the following body language? A. These people make lots of expressive hand gestures and are prone to perching on the edge of a table or sitting with one foot tucked beneath them. B. This person has animated facial expressions and a tendency to touch the other person's shoulder or arm when saying hello. C. This person frequently glances at the clock on the wall and often jiggles a leg or drums fingers on table. D. This person sits erectly in a chair and makes infrequent facial expressions, but eyes are alert and taking everything in. 4. Who would be wearing this suit? A. As attire, it's standard issue blue, completely acceptable but not particularly distinct. B. It's carefully chosen, well-tailored, and perfectly ironed and accessorized. C. Basic pieces are accented by a bright shirt or boldly patterned tie. D. Flattering but not flashy. A woman might complement this outfit with a favorite scarf. A man might accent the jacket with a tie his 5-year-old gave him for Father's Day. Answers. 1. A. Circle. B. Angle. C. Straight line. D. Zigzag. 2. A. Angle. B. Straight line. C. Circle. D. Zigzag. 3. A. Zigzag. B. Circle. C. Straight line. D. Angle. 4. A. Straight line. B. Angle. C. Zigzag. D. Circle. Keep an open mind. One of the most powerful ways to reduce misperceptions that others might form of you is to stay open to how you are shaping your perceptions of them. If you rush to judgment about someone, chances are that person may have the same reaction to you. Monkey see, monkey do. If you don't want people to make assumptions about you that they automatically consider as facts, be aware of not falling into the same habit. In other words, stay unconvinced. It is natural for us to form first impressions when we meet someone. The challenge is to remain open to letting the other person change. All too often we jump to conclusions, but the next time you find yourself forming perceptions too quickly, stop and ask yourself, how else can I interpret that person, that action, that situation? People often act based on what they expect someone else's reaction to be. You can change the outcome of a situation by keeping an open mind and not pigeonholing other people into what you already believe about them. Lead by example, and let it be clear that your perceptions continue to take shape as your connection with someone progresses. After Erica and I unexpectedly bonded during spring break, I thought back on how I'd acted toward her before our trip. I realized that since I had already decided she was a stuck-up rich girl, I probably hadn't acted very kindly toward her. In fact, if I was honest, I had treated her exactly the way I thought she was treating me, with thinly veiled contempt. And as my dad would have said, the world is a mirror. What I got back was the same frostiness I was giving off. Had I remained open to other interpretations of her behavior, I could have had a great friend even sooner. More recently, I coached Lisa, a new manager in her early 30s. She voluntarily shared her feelings with me about one of her colleagues, a woman named Drea, who was also a new manager as well as the mother of a toddler. Lisa always felt that Drea was unfriendly. After a few attempts to chat with her, Lisa concluded that Drea had no interest in being friendly, so she stopped making an effort. One Saturday afternoon, Lisa ran into Drea in the town where they both lived, and they wound up sharing more during those 15 minutes of chatting on the street than they had in the previous year they'd worked together. It turned out that Drea was having problems with her son, and consequently feeling overwhelmed by work. That conversation broke the ice. Lisa was able to appreciate the pressures Drea was under outside the office, pressures that contributed to her seeming closed and unapproachable, and Drea felt relieved to have her colleague understand her very taxing situation. The two women wound up not only becoming friends, but finding ways to collaborate at work, building on their new appreciations for one another, and becoming even more productive at work in the process. You never know what else is going on in somebody's life. If you jump to conclusions about someone based on limited, prescribed interactions, you close the door to the possibility of deepening your connection. Whether with a new acquaintance or an existing relationship, stay open to the possibility that your perceptions aren't entirely accurate. It just may give you the opportunity to strengthen a bond. Inconsistent communications. There are 3 components that contribute to the signals you send out to other people, and they are often referred to by trainers as the 3 V's of communication. Verbal, the words you choose; vocal, the tone and animation in your voice; and visual, your facial expressions and body language. The key to transmitting the true you is to be consistent verbally, vocally, and visually when communicating. If not, other people will pick up on your mixed messages and perceive you as being inauthentic or confused. I was once hired by a top financial services firm to conduct workshops with senior executives about the employee recruitment process. One of the executives, a middle-aged man named Gary, was perhaps the most extreme example of an inconsistent communicator I've yet come across. Part of our work involved role-playing final interviews, during which the executive was to express the very real benefits and appeal of working for the company. When Gary and I sat down for the mock interview, he started his spiel in a monotone drone, telling me what a great company it was to work for, rarely making eye contact with me, and acting as if he was reciting a script. It was unbelievable. He was unbelievable, because he was being completely inconsistent in what he was communicating. If it had been an actual situation, and I'd been the candidate listening to him offer me the position, there's no way I would have been convinced by him to accept the offer. It's all in your body. My mother always told me, it's not what you say, but how you say it. Her words immediately leaped to mind when I came across the work of psychologist Albert Mehrabian. He's done extensive research to determine how, in a face-to-face setting, someone is most likely to feel about you. In his book Silent Messages, Mehrabian lays out a formula for the factors that constitute a person's total liking. 7% verbal liking, plus 38% vocal liking, plus 55% facial liking. In other words, what you say has very little meaning if your body isn't backing it up. Think about the average teenager who may say, "Fine," with crossed arms and a gaze fixed on the ceiling. The unspoken message here is quite clearly, no, it is not fine. When you meet someone for the first time and say, "It's so nice to meet you," do you typically use a warm tone of voice, smile, and look that person directly in the eye? Or are you more apt to shyly avert your gaze, or speak in a clipped manner that indicates you're short on time? What are you visually communicating to the other person? Are your vocal, tone, and visual, facial, and body communications backing up your verbal message? Decide what image you want to portray, and then determine how to convey it. Your body language can divulge your disinterest, or conversely, it can affirm your attentiveness and confidence. Live the law. Use what your mama gave you. After coaching thousands of students on interviewing techniques, I've come to realize that people are largely unaware of their natural body language. I often think about the first time I was videotaped for a practice interview while still in business school. I was a curl twirler. While answering questions, my finger would be winding and unwinding a lock of hair. Not exactly the professional image I wanted to project. Increasing your awareness about your body language is an effective way to improve it, ensuring that it's in sync with the verbal messages you want to transmit. Follow these steps. Learn more. What are you communicating with your body language? The best way to find out is to watch yourself on video. If you already have footage, pull it out and watch it. Even a few minutes of video recorded on a smartphone will show you what you need to know. Are you smiley but slouchy? Alert but off-puttingly stern? Make note of the things you are naturally doing well and where you could use improvement. Do you laugh nervously? Play with your rings? Jingle something in your pocket? Even being marginally more conscious of the unspoken signals you are sending goes a long way, compelling you to stand straighter and maintain eye contact. If you don't have video footage of yourself to watch, just ask some people who know you well what your common fidgets and general mannerisms and body language are. They will be able to tell you. Pay attention. Watch the body language of those around you. What types of gestures, stances, and facial expressions do people exhibit? And what messages do these signals convey to you? If you observe things that resonate with you in a positive way, try incorporating them into your own body language repertoire. Expanding our abilities to communicate is all about skill development, and new skills need to be practiced before we can become comfortable with them. 3. Pick and choose. The following behaviors are common and powerful transmitters of nonverbal signals. Choose one or two where you have room for improvement. Then practice the behavior. Eye contact. To express interest and confidence, eye contact needs to be consistent. Practice in a mirror if you have to, looking yourself straight in the eye, and imagining yourself talking to an important client or senior colleague. Maintain eye contact in a natural way. This doesn't mean staring. It means engaging. With positive, effective eye contact, there are breaks of usually 2 to 5 seconds that naturally happen between the periods of eye contact. Pauses. Pauses are powerful. They can communicate thoughtfulness, confidence, and a natural comfort with your surroundings. To transition from pauses back into conversation, use phrases that remark on what the other person just said, or seek to clarify it if necessary. I have never thought about that before. Or, if I understand you correctly, you are saying, stance. Stand tall. A slouch or an overly relaxed stance reads as lacking assurance in yourself and interest in the other person. I'm only 4 feet 10, but when I imagine pulling up on a marionette string attached to the top of my head, everything straightens out. I can't tell you how many times someone has come over to me after one of my presentations and said, "Wow, you really are short." They're always surprised to stand next to me and get a sense of my actual height because they say, "You come off as being taller." Voice. Forcing yourself to sound unnaturally animated or enthusiastic can backfire. It comes off as insincere and fake. Improve your vocal signals by making sure your delivery sounds confident. Don't mumble or speak in a stilted fashion. Resist the urge to use ums and ahs. And don't end your sentences by raising your voice as if you're posing a question. Self-doubt. A common reason our bodies and voices can often give us away is that we are feeling self-doubt. If you don't believe the message you are trying to transmit, why should anybody else? In Chapter 2, we discussed the law of self-image and looked at how to connect with our best images of our authentic selves. Remember the advice about how to choose your words? Well, to project those best words that define you, you must believe them, and a crucial part of that is projecting through body language. The words you choose represent how you perceive yourself and how you want others to perceive you. Apply the same techniques we used in Chapter 2 to ensure that other people's perceptions of you are in line with what you want to express. Say nice things. When you are feeling good about yourself, your positive body language will fall into place. Before walking into a meeting or picking up the phone to make an important call, ask yourself, what are the words on my list that I want to convey at this moment? Think about what those words would look like in action, and hold that image in your mind. Realize that you already know what it looks like to successfully transmit the positive message you intend. Forget about the bully on your shoulder. Now is the time to champion the cheerleader. The key is to think it first and feel it in your body, then let it happen. Authenticity comes from being true to the moment, in the moment. If you get yourself in a positive frame of mind, your body will follow. Another way to build positive perceptions is by saying nice things to someone else. Spend some time noticing what you admire or appreciate about those around you, and how those things positively impact your perceptions of those people. Then tell them what you admire. The results are almost always win-win. Compliment a colleague on how he handled a sticky client situation, and you may also walk away with new insights about how to proceed in a difficult situation of your own. The act of putting our impressions into words helps us understand what informs the perceptions we make of other people, and how what we do shapes the perceptions others are making of us. Even telling a stranger what you admire about her can have a positive impact. Complimenting that woman in front of you in the grocery store checkout line on her coat makes both of you feel good. Saying nice things to people we don't know can even yield more far-reaching results. My friend Bill likes to ride his bike to the gym, and for a time he kept noticing a beautiful bicycle that was often locked to the rack. One morning, as he was leaving, the owner of the bike was there unlocking it. Bill went up to him and told him that he thought the man had the greatest bike he'd ever seen. They ended up chatting for a half hour and realized that they had all sorts of things in common. The guy was a law professor at the nearby university where Bill had received his marketing degree. The two became friends and not only started biking together, but also on several occasions recommended clients to one another. Communicating what we appreciate by saying nice things has powerful results for ourselves and those around us. Opening up a conversation can be opening up a world of new possibilities. Use positive framing. Imagine that you have two direct reports, and you ask each of them how things went on a task they've just completed. One answers, "It didn't go nearly as badly as the last time. That last one was a disaster." The other says, "I learned a lot from the last experience, and this time it went much more smoothly." The content of their responses is not significantly different, but which one has the more positive impact on your perceptions of the employee? The second one, of course. Emphasizing the negative creates a negative impression. Emphasizing the positive puts the speaker in a positive light. In Chapter 2, you learned how external framing can be used to project your positive self-perceptions. The same principle holds true when it comes to affecting the perceptions others have of you. Word choice is a powerful tool for shaping the impressions you want to create. Remember the rules for effective external framing from the last chapter. Start with a positive. Choose strong, actionable verbs. Focus on what you can do. Translate mistakes into knowledge and opportunity. If you minimize your accomplishments, that's what people will believe about you. If you emphasize your accomplishments, that is how you will be perceived. Use the word I when applicable, and give other people their due as well. Self-acknowledgement doesn't need to come across as bragging, and if you do it in an authentic way, it won't. Fake it till you make it real. Take the lessons you've learned about improving your body language and put them into practice. Stand tall, make direct eye contact, and remember to smile. Even if you've still got the training wheels on, once you start presenting the image of yourself that you want others to have, you'll see that it has a powerful impact. If you seem to believe in yourself, others will too. When I walked into the office of the head of training at J.P. Morgan Chase, I entered with confidence, as though I were accustomed to holding these meetings, even though it was the first time I was attempting to sell my not-yet-formed company services. But I had been in plenty of client meetings during my tenure at the financial services firm where I previously worked. Thinking back on those experiences helped remind me what comfortable looks and feels like. By tapping into my memories of these similar situations, I leveraged that past experience to instruct myself how to act as if, and I landed the client. How I perceived of myself was how the client perceived of me. Work from the outside in. Just as what you wear affects how you feel about yourself, it also has a dramatic impact on how others see you. I remember teaching a week-long seminar, and when I walked into the room on the first morning, there was a woman wrapped in a thick black jacket hunched over one of the tables. The way she held herself, hidden in that dark coat, with something of a scowl on her face, made me assume that she would be cold and reticent. But when I turned to start the session, I saw that she had taken off her coat, and underneath was a bright orange top. The vibrant color brought a huge smile to my face, which is what she saw when I greeted her, and she beamed right back. If she had still been wrapped in the thick, dark jacket, I'm sure our initial encounter would have been more formal, because I would have been approaching her with the less than welcoming first impression I'd formed based on her attire, hunched body language, and scowl. Instead, the sunshiny hue of her top instantly changed my perception of her, and we were able to connect with one another's warmth immediately. Be you, be aware, be flexible. The power in understanding how our actions create others' perceptions of us is that we gain significant control over creating those perceptions. Be comfortable being you in a situation, and be aware of the signals you are picking up from others. Use your knowledge about styles to stay flexible, and moderate your behavior to the best effect. If you're a zigzag and approach problem-solving from all sides at once, but you are working with a straight line who is focused on achieving the most direct results, rein in some of your zigzagging to increase the effectiveness of the collaboration, and convey that you can adapt to different situations as needed. Flexing your style isn't about imitating another person or suppressing your impulses. It is about fine-tuning your messages to communicate effectively and enable others to perceive the true you. Body language. Sometimes it doesn't translate. When dealing with international clients or partners, remember that different cultures have different codes of propriety and conduct that are often expressed in nonverbal ways. During my first business trip to Japan, I was surprised to discover that a firm handshake and confident eye contact were not the normal methods for greeting colleagues. The Japanese place a high premium on respect and deference, so approaching a superior as you would up here is strictly taboo. Instead, Japanese employees greet senior colleagues, even as I found out if they're foreign, with a nod and a bow, eyes downcast. Looking me in the eye would have been unspeakably rude, and it's imperative that the junior employee bow more deeply than the senior employee to show respect. This had hilarious results for one of my American colleagues, who spent a good 5 minutes repeatedly bowing with a junior employee in a Japanese firm, until he realized that he needed to let the Japanese businessman bow more deeply, so that the businessman could show his deference to his American guest. A healthy amount of in-the-moment awareness is all it usually takes to pick up on these signals and act accordingly. Insensitive gaffes, though, can have big consequences. One colleague told me about a meeting he'd been in with several of his firm's employees and their Japanese clients. As was customary for the Japanese, the group had respectfully exchanged business cards, presenting the cards with both hands, the information on the card facing the recipient. During the meeting, though, one of the firm's junior employees absent-mindedly picked up one of the senior Japanese business person's cards, and while mulling something over, started tapping it on his mouth until it was finally between his lips. The Japanese clients were extremely offended and no longer wanted to deal with that employee. Refresh your memory. The law of perception. Perception is reality. How you perceive others is your reality about them, and the same is true for them of you. The sub-law of first impressions. It is much easier to make a good first impression than to change a bad one. Do it right the first time. We create our perceptions. Just as we create first impressions, we create perceptions based on them. Be your authentic self to transmit the real you to others and impact their perceptions of you. Study the style matrix. Learn your dominant communication style and observe the styles of those around you to create effective perceptions and avoid misperceptions. Keep an open mind. Stay open to changing your perceptions of people as your connections with them grow. That way you'll also increase the likelihood that they'll stay open to changing their perception of you. Be consistent. To positively communicate your authentic self, make sure all your modes of messaging, verbal, vocal, and visual, are in sync. Do away with self-doubt. To connect with your best perceptions of yourself and convey those perceptions to others, harness the strategies of saying nice things, using positive reframing, faking it till you make it real, and working from the outside in. Be flexible. Be aware of the signals you are putting out there and the ones other people are transmitting to you, and modify your behavior when necessary to ensure you are being perceived in the most authentic way. Chapter 4. The Law of Energy. Our energy is in proportion to the resistance it meets. William Hazlitt, 17th century essayist. A few years ago, I was hired by Rick, the director of undergraduate career counseling at a university, to conduct a series of workshops about interviewing skills. At the end of one of the sessions, we went back to his office to chat about the immediate student feedback, which had been extremely enthusiastic. A former student who took my workshop the year before had joined me in my presentation to share how he had put the techniques he'd learned into action and landed his first-choice job. Rick and I were both beaming as we discussed how the students seemed to be incorporating the skills we were teaching them. Then we had to wrap up our conversation because Rick had a one-on-one meeting scheduled with a student. At that point, I observed a distinct change in Rick's energy. The smile disappeared, his body seemed to tense up, and his demeanor became distracted. I wondered if I had said or done something to upset him, and asked him. It turned out that the meeting he was about to have was with a student who, in his words, drove him crazy. The student had been scheduling meetings with him practically every week, showing up to their sessions a fuming ball of energy. The student would rapidly detail all the contact he'd had with recruiters since their last session, and whenever he didn't hear back from a recruiter, he would vehemently denounce Rick's advice. Rick knew that it was his job to help the student, and wanted to do so, but the student's aggressive, offensive attitude put Rick on the defense. Rick found it difficult to deal with the student in an instructive way. As Rick told me about the situation, he got completely worked up, talking more rapidly, and sitting forward in his chair in an agitated way. "I'm dreading the appointment," he told me. "I always feel so frustrated and useless after meeting with a student, and he walks into my office with such an attitude." I listened attentively, indicating that I could empathize with the dread he was feeling about the upcoming meeting. Then I said to him, "Let's try something. Tell me about a student you really like." Rick told me about another student he was working with one-on-one, but this student he found to be dynamic, proactive, and engaging. In fact, Rick was able to successfully connect the student with an important recruiter. As he told me the story, his tone of voice became lighter, his body relaxed, and suddenly he was smiling again. "Okay," I said, "I want you to keep this second student in mind, the one you really admire, until the problematic student walks in the door. See if you get a different response from him than what you were used to." He agreed to give it a try. Later that afternoon, Rick called me. "That was so great," he said. "It totally worked. I had a completely different kind of interaction, and our meeting was positive and productive." He couldn't get the words out fast enough. Whenever we saw one another, Rick kept me posted about his progress with his student. Future interactions between the two of them continued getting better, and eventually he came to not only understand and more effectively assist the student, but to like him as well. During any interaction, each person involved transmits energy that affects the dynamic of that relationship. Becoming more conscious of how we are acting and feeling, how the other person is acting and feeling, and what that combination contributes to our encounters, is a powerful tool for harnessing likability and building meaningful connections. Often we are not even aware of the energy we ourselves are giving off. Energy impacts our communication, and it can either work for us or against us. Energy is contagious. Think about a recent situation that went well for you. If you had to describe your mood during that moment and your approach to the situation, what would you say? Whatever words you use, describe the vibe you were giving off and the energy you were putting out. Your description should encapsulate the feeling the other person or people were getting from you, perhaps even before you said a word. Sometimes people might even sum up their natural energy and approach to life as a motto: never let them see you sweat, or you're never fully dressed without a smile. These are their words to live by, and they can encapsulate energy in a distilled, tangible way. Energy is derived from both your natural personality and your actual mood in a moment. You can feel your own energy in your body, your face, your stance, even in the way you are breathing. Other people pick up on these signals and on the words you choose in a given moment. Likewise, you pick up on the energy of others and respond to it in kind. The kind of energy we bring to a situation impacts the ways our interactions with the world unfold. Energy is contagious. That is the law of energy. Our own output of energy can energize other people or deflate them, contribute to productivity, or add to the confusion. Energy affects the course of interactions and facilitates connections. Your energy during an interaction will be picked up on by others and influence the outcome. What you give off is what you get back. So getting your energy to an optimal place before entering a situation can make all the difference. The key is to enable the energy that is going to best serve the situation. When we understand that energy is something we create, we can work on driving the energy rather than having it drive us. In other words, know what energy is most useful to bring to a given situation, or when dealing with a specific person, and get yourself to that optimal place so that you can better influence the outcome. Finding energy that works. To be perceived as authentic and sincere, you must be true to yourself and your energy in a situation. The key isn't to artificially be the peppiest person in the room. It's far more important to be sincere. But this doesn't mean letting a bad day ride roughshod over you and the energy you are putting out to others either. We can put forth positive energy that is sincere, even when faced with challenges, difficulties, or distractions. This is a fundamental part of connecting effectively. Learning how to put out the right energy at the right time in the right place, and doing it authentically, is a fundamental part of effectively connecting with others. Authentic, positive energy is likable. To understand how the law of energy works, consider 3 questions. 1. Where is your energy right now? 2. Where is the other person's energy? 3. What energy knowledge do you possess about yourself and about the energy expectations that exist between you and the other person? You first. Where is your energy right now? To harness our energy to the best effect, we must be in tune with it. That means knowing what vibe we're giving off at any given moment, determining how well it is working, and if necessary, adjusting it. Rick was completely unaware that he was helping to create unpleasant interactions with his aggressive student. By approaching those meetings with dread, which, as I saw firsthand, he was clearly indicating with his body language and tone of voice, he was transmitting a negative vibe to his student. The fact that their sessions were difficult was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once Rick adjusted his approach and brought a more open and positive energy to their sessions, he was able to start successfully connecting with the student. The student picked up on Rick's positive vibe, became less combative, and was able to accomplish some truly productive work. As Albert Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Assess your output of energy in a situation, and if you see that it could be improved, don't be afraid to change it. If necessary, you can tap into memories of other times you've naturally exuded positive energy, and harness these recollections to adjust your approach to a new situation or person. Remember, too, that it is sometimes necessary to lead by example. Depending on the energy that other people are bringing to the interaction, it may take them a while to respond to your shift, but by taking action and making adjustments, you are making the first step in bringing around more positive results. Live the law. Shift your energy. When entering a situation where you don't feel as if you are putting your best foot forward, shift your energy to let the positive, authentic you come through. Think about the emotion you want to embody, and then conjure up a memory of a very specific time when you felt that way. Recall as many details as you can to make the memory as strong as possible. Hear the client comment on the effectiveness of your solution. See the look of admiration from your colleagues. Remember what it felt like to accomplish that monumental task on time and on budget. What happens? If you practice this simple technique, you will find that your body relaxes, you feel more naturally confident, and your energy shifts toward the memory energy, that positive energy you are reconnecting with. Carry this energy shift with you into the new situation, and that is the energy you'll give off. Next, them. Where is the other person's energy? A connection is something that, by virtue of what it is, requires two people. To impact the energy of a situation in the most positive way, we need to be aware not only of our energy signals, but the other person's energy signals too. There are many times when we already instinctively do this. When we call someone, and the person answers with a hello, we immediately interpret the energy on the other end of the line through the single word and the way it was delivered. Was it curt, chipper, or guarded? Body language, tone of voice, and rate of speech are all indicators of someone's energy. Someone who is making sweeping arm gestures and talking a mile a minute in a scattered way gives off a completely different vibe than someone who is speaking calmly and reflectively, with arms crossed, in a manner that indicates careful contemplation. Be open to the fact that your interpretations of energy signals might need more clarity to be fully accurate. Downcast eyes and crossed arms might indicate that someone is uninterested or bored, but in a different context, those gestures might just mean that the person is giving the matter further thought. If you are unsure of the messages someone is sending, ask questions to gain clarity. Be aware of your timing and tone when making such inquiries, and use neutral language. You can broach your desire for clarification with such phrases as, "Would it help to talk through anything? What else is on your mind? What do you think about that? Is everything okay?" Energy has power. In addition to harnessing your own energy, understanding the energy that others bring to a situation is vital to impacting the overall shape of the encounter and its outcome. The most powerful experience I've had to date happened while conducting a seminar on conflict resolution at a government agency where employees of many different ethnicities worked. In the morning, we focused on the best language to use when addressing workplace conflicts, the different approaches that can be taken to resolve conflicts, and how to improve communication. At the end of the day, I paired off the staff members to discuss and verbalize real workplace conflicts. One woman told her partner that she'd overheard one of their coworkers, an Irish-American woman, say about a client, "My word, why can't people just speak English?" The comment had really hurt the woman who was relating the anecdote. She herself was Latina, and she'd taken the comment as a personal affront. She told her partner that after this happened, she found it difficult to work next to the woman or even speak to her, and in truth, hadn't spoken one word to her since the incident. I asked this woman if we could share the conflict with the group. She agreed, and so I asked her to relay the story to everyone. As she did so, her words, tone of voice, and body language all expressed the very strong anger she felt about the situation. Immediately, I could feel the rest of the group picking up on it. "You're kidding me," one woman shouted. "That's completely unacceptable," a man barked from the back of the room. With what felt like the flick of a switch, the group energy had become aggressive and hostile, and it just kept intensifying. It felt as if a mob mentality had suddenly taken over the room. "Okay, hold on for a second," I said. "Is it possible that this comment was taken out of context? Do you know the full extent of the client case history? Or what the exact exchange between the client and the worker was?" The group appeared willing to listen, so I continued. "Let's think for a moment about what else may have motivated this co-worker's comment." As the group began to discuss the different possibilities, the vibe in the room changed. Someone suggested that maybe the woman was frustrated by her inability to do her job. Another person suggested that perhaps the woman was afraid of losing her job because she was not bilingual. The Latina woman who'd originally related the anecdote even ventured that by not trying to understand the full context of the situation before taking offense at it, perhaps she had helped perpetuate the hostile work environment that she was complaining about. By the end of the session, the aggressive energy had dissipated and evolved into curiosity and even sympathy. By probing the situation and relinquishing fixed, rigid assumptions, the group was able to change its energy from negative to at least neutral and open, clearing the way to resolve the conflict in the most constructive way. Understanding the energy of a person or a group of people enables us to more productively connect with them. In the end, it's not about isolated individuals, but about how those individuals share their energies to interact, understand one another, and connect. Live the law. Meet them where they are. When you are faced with difficult, challenging, or unproductive energy from someone else, you have 4 options. 1. Add fuel to the fire. Often, this is the reaction that feels easiest and most instinctual, because you impulsively let loose with exactly what you were thinking and feeling. But this kind of reaction also demonstrates a lack of deeper understanding about the person or situation at hand. By simply returning someone else's negative or destructive energy, you exacerbate and amplify it. That's not a good outcome. 2. Brush them off. Imagine a coworker coming into a meeting, riled up about something. She's worked herself into a state, and your response is, "Just calm down. I'm sure everything will be fine." Such a response may seem well-intentioned. After all, you are just trying to counter or shift what you see as unhelpful or unproductive energy. But it typically backfires, because it ignores and invalidates the coworker's current frame of mind, and can leave her feeling misunderstood. Again, not good. 3. Extract yourself. This can be an effective method, as long as you are harnessing it in a positive way. Sometimes extracting yourself from a difficult situation can indicate that you are burying your head in the sand, avoiding it in the hopes that it will just go away. This can leave the other person feeling ignored, continuing the adverse energy. But if you realize that contributing your current energy isn't going to help the situation, extracting yourself can give you the chance to shift your approach and come back to the situation in a productive way. This option may also give the other person time to get into a better frame of mind and re-engage the situation with constructive energy. 4. Meet them where they are. Almost. This is by far the most effective way to help shift someone else's energy so that you can better connect. When dealing with other people, read the signals they are sending out, listen to what they are saying, and validate their energy state by responding with energy that is just below or just above what they are expressing. Matching their energy exactly will not help them shift out of a negative state, but almost matching it will let them know you understand what they are saying, and it will give them options for adjusting their energy positively. The response to the riled-up coworker isn't, "Relax, it will be fine," but, "Oh, I can't believe that happened," or, "I can see that you're really upset by that." Don't counter the coworker's frustration by playing it down. Instead, meet the coworker's energy close to where it is, then gradually lift the mood at a natural pace, helping him shift his energy and settle into a more moderate, open frame of mind. Helping other people make an energy shift increases our chances of connecting with them and building a meaningful relationship. It also increases trust and creates mood memory, a concept we'll take a closer look at in Chapter 8. Let's imagine one scenario with 3 possible outcomes. Let's say there is a couple, Sheila and Charles, on their way to an event. Sheila is driving, and she's gotten rather lost, which makes her anxious that they'll be late. As she gets more and more turned around, she gets more and more upset, frantically expressing that she doesn't know what to do. She hates being late. Charles, sitting in the passenger seat, knows Sheila hates to be late. In the first possible outcome, he meets Sheila's panic with anger and shouting. Now not only are they lost and running late, but they're also in a fight. Charles exacerbated Sheila's panic by reacting to the moment's negative energy with more negative energy, feeding it back to Sheila until the situation is spinning out of control. In the second possible outcome, Charles responds to Sheila's panic with a casual, "Calm down, it's no big deal. Who cares if we're late?" Clearly, Sheila cares if they're late, even if Charles doesn't. And she interprets Charles's nonchalance as him not listening to and understanding what she is saying. She may even read more into it, hearing the unspoken message in his words, that her reaction is unreasonable and irrational. She gets even more upset. In the third possible outcome, Charles says to Sheila in a concerned tone, "I know you hate being late." Then, in a slightly more relaxed tone, but still sounding attentive, he says, "Okay, we have about 15 minutes to get there. Should we call and let them know we're lost? Maybe they can give us directions." Now he's trying to meet Sheila close to where she is and help her shift away from her panic to a mindset that is better for her and the situation. Charles is demonstrating that he is concerned, interested, and understands Sheila's problem, and his energy matches hers in seriousness, but is several notches more calm. He is not flat out taking control in a way that would further set her off, but rather posing a question to create constructive energy so that they can both participate in solving the problem. I call this third response suggestive or probing questioning. The key is to remember that you might not get the answer you're hoping for, and you have to be all right with that. Otherwise, you are not truly asking a question, but rather issuing a statement with a question mark attached to it, and this doesn't keep the situation open to mutual resolution. If you don't get the answer you hoped you would, consider what else might be useful for the situation and try another tack. The previous example is a social situation, but the same principle holds true in the business world. Mood and energy levels can shift positively or negatively, depending on the actions and reactions of colleagues. A young colleague of mine, who was a few weeks into her new job, became upset that certain recruiting promises weren't being kept. She expressed her displeasure to an equally junior coworker, and he responded with a shock and outrage that matched her own. Feeding on that energy being reflected directly back at her, the woman marched over to HR and complained. As it turns out, the recruiting promises were going to be kept, but the woman was so new on the job that she didn't yet understand the company's procedures. Luckily, the situation blew over, though she of course deeply regretted filing the complaint, and even more deeply regretted having shared her dismay with that particular coworker. It immediately altered the course of their relationship, based on the woman's newly gathered energy knowledge. Building context. What energy knowledge do you possess? Energy knowledge is what you know about your own energy, and what you know about the energy that exists between you and another person, based on past experiences. Being aware of our energy knowledge is key. This awareness allows us to project the energy we want others to see, communicate effectively in day-to-day situations, and adjust our energy under special circumstances to affect the most positive outcomes. Knowledge is power, and energy knowledge is no exception. Your energy knowledge of you. We all have an energy persona. This persona is driven by our natural personality and general outlook on life, how we tend to view and react to different situations. What do you already know about your own energy? And are you aware of how other people read it? Even when the energy we're transmitting is good, it is important to understand what it is, and to adjust it at times to achieve varying results. Good energy doesn't necessarily mean happy. Rather, it means whatever is productive and authentic for the situation, and for you in that situation. My friend Mary is a reporter by profession, and naturally inquisitive, often asking lots of questions about what's going on in her friends' lives when they get together. But she noticed that frequently her friends didn't ask questions of her in return. Her energy persona was one of natural, perhaps constant curiosity, and it was apparent to her friends. But to build the friendships in a way that opened up avenues for more give and take, Mary had to consciously adjust her natural tendency to ask questions and insert her own experiences at the right moments during these conversations. Sure, there were one or two friends who were too self-absorbed to pick up on Mary's effort to adjust her energy, but most of her friends, whether consciously or not, noticed, and began talking to Mary about what was going on in her own life. One of my clients, a woman named Carrie, has a gregarious personality and radiates a you-can-lean-on-me vibe. She is proud of being there for her friends when they're going through something difficult, and she is often the one to call and check in on them when the chips are down. Then she went through her own difficult time and was deeply dismayed to find that her phone didn't ring. People weren't checking in on her the way she did with them. She approached her closest friends to find out why, and was shocked by their responses. "It doesn't seem like you want help," one of them said to her. And another said, "You seem so strong. You never seem to need anyone's help." Her competent, tough girl energy made her friends think that she didn't want or need help, when exactly the opposite was true. By letting down her guard and toning down her ultra-strong vibe, shifting her energy to become more vulnerable with friends, she was able to get the support she needed and that her friends actually wanted to give her. Understanding our own energy lets us know when it's working for us and when it's working against us. Adjustments to that energy at critical times can alter the energy of a given situation, making it more productive and fulfilling for all involved, increasing likability and the opportunities for connections. Live the law. What's your energy? To get a better grasp on what your natural energy is, it's quite simple. Ask people. Choose at least 5 people from different aspects of your life, and pick people with whom you have a well-established history. The more people you ask, the better. Start with these questions. How do you expect me to react when you are mad? When you're happy? When you're sad? In general, how would you describe my mood? How would you describe my personality? How would you say I respond when things get tough? What kind of friend or coworker am I? Write down their responses and look for the descriptive words that appear again and again. Scrutinize your findings to see if there are differences between work, family, and friend descriptions. Sometimes the energy we emit can vary based on environment, and yet all these different energies can be authentic to us. Your energy knowledge of others. As soon as we meet people for the first time, we begin building our energy knowledge about them. If you have an established relationship with someone, ask yourself, what energy knowledge exists between us? When dealing with the energy between two people, it is important to manage expectations. I call these energy expectations. Why does someone seek you out in a particular situation? And what makes you turn to certain other people? These choices are based on the energy knowledge we have of one another, so they are our energy expectations. Who do you approach when trying to figure out how to handle a situation with a coworker? Who is the first person you turn to when you want help solving a problem in an out-of-the-box way? Who do you seek out when you need to take a break and are looking for some fun or casual banter? By understanding our energy expectations of other people, we can be clear about what we are looking for and communicate our need to them. Energy knowledge reduces miscommunications and frustrations. Although energy knowledge and energy expectations are valuable tools in deepening connections and attaining positive results, understand that there is always the possibility our expectations in a given situation won't be met. Don't use those moments to discard the energy knowledge you've accrued, but adjust your thinking so that you can determine if there is someone else you can approach to achieve your desired results. Stay open, too, to the possibility that your energy expectations may at times miss the mark and need to be reassessed. Likewise, it is extremely useful to be aware of other people's energy expectations of us. This helps us more effectively accomplish what is expected of us. This knowledge can also help us decide when to consciously not fulfill those expectations, if doing so would be detrimental. As an example, a good friend of mine, Brian, shared this story about an encounter with his coworker, Jay, who came to him complaining about their boss. Jay groused about how the boss wouldn't sign off on a project, even though Jay had reworked it what seemed countless times. In the past, Jay had sought Brian's support and wanted him to take his side when he butted heads with the boss. Brian knew that this was Jay's energy expectation of him, but he also knew that it wasn't going to help the situation any to fulfill that expectation. Brian simply asked him, "Do you just want to vent, or do you want my advice?" He gave Jay those two options, essentially asking Jay how he wanted to proceed, but without giving any indication that he'd join Jay in bad-mouthing the boss. When faced with only those options, Jay asked for Brian's advice. Brian told him that he understood how frustrating the situation must be, but that maybe what Jay needed instead was a debriefing about the project with the boss, to cohesively assess trouble spots, rather than reflexively responding to criticism in increments. Jay did eventually complete the project, and Brian had helped him by not fulfilling the immediate energy expectations. What we want, that is, our energy expectations, may not be what gets us a desired result. In other words, people are not always looking for productive energy. There is no surefire way to deal with this possibility. Ask yourself, what would help at that moment? And what would help in the long run? If it would help, ask the other person these questions too. Seek to strike a balance between what they want and what might actually serve them best. If you give in to unproductive or destructive energy expectations, could it possibly harm the relationship or adversely affect the situation? Our authentic energy is generally a consistent thing, but there are always moments when it may be adversely influenced by internal or external forces. This doesn't negate the energy knowledge we've accumulated, but rather reminds us how to harness what we know about energy to create positive outcomes even in challenging situations. Live the law. Does it serve? Energy is the unspoken element present in any exchange, so it is important to be aware of the energy you're bringing with you to the interaction. Does your energy serve you, the situation, and the relationship? How is the other person's energy affecting those things? Often we find ourselves experiencing a recurring negative response to someone else's energy. To better understand this, ask yourself, what am I getting from this shared energy experience? What is the other person possibly getting from it? What are the results? How could I change my reaction? My client Aggie, a mid-level executive in her 60s, was an empty nester and a recent divorcee. She'd begun taking every office interaction, large or small, as a personal offense. When she asked herself these very questions, she got some revelations. She was using anger to protect herself because it felt safer than vulnerability. She was also releasing anger in the workplace that she never expressed to her ex-husband. Her negative energy resulted in her feeling isolated from her coworkers in both personal and professional ways. If she stopped assuming that everyone was suddenly out to get her, she'd be able to bring less anger to her interactions and a more neutral energy, which would build understanding, inclusion, and productivity. If you ask yourself the same questions and discover your energy doesn't serve a situation, adjust it by once again reviewing the exercise earlier in this chapter. See Live the Law, Shift Your Energy. Also, take a close look at your answer to one question in particular. How could I change my reaction? To assess the energy shift you want to make. If another person's energy isn't serving the situation, build new energy knowledge with that person by helping her shift her energy in a more positive direction. The networking application. Another kind of energy. Some people have a visceral negative response to the word networking. Others relish it. And some of us, well, our reaction depends on our energy at that moment and what we anticipate of the situation. Use your energy knowledge of yourself to determine your networking energy. Under what circumstances does your best authentic energy come through? For instance, do you have the most natural positive energy during lunch or dinner situations, where you talk in a focused way with one or two people at your table? Or is your natural energy best at events such as cocktail receptions, where there is the opportunity to have brief interactions with many different people? Do you connect most positively with others at daytime events, or at those that happen after working hours? Our energy ebbs and flows with different situations, locations, atmospheres, and times of day. Once we understand our networking energy, we can use it to create opportunities that align most fruitfully with how we naturally are. When you choose situations in which you are most comfortable, in other words, those that match your networking energy, your authentic self emerges. Remember, though, that it's important to stretch yourself. This doesn't mean pretending to be comfortable when you're not, but rather actively shifting your energy in certain situations to broaden the scope and depth of your interactions. If your energy persona is naturally boisterous, and you find that you're often at the center of conversations and networking situations, you may want to show that you can also be a good listener. If you more naturally assume a thoughtful, measured approach, look for opportunities to display how you can drive conversations too. By expanding the limits of when and how we can emit our authentic energy, we increase our potential for making and building meaningful connections. Refresh your memory. The law of energy. Energy is contagious. What we give off is what we get back. Find the right energy. Channeling your authentic energy doesn't mean constantly being happy. We can be genuine and real and forge positive connections, even when faced with difficulties and challenges. Identify your energy and theirs. Recognizing your energy in a given situation helps you understand how you are contributing to the dynamic and what you can change to affect the most positive outcome. Recognizing the energy others give off helps you adjust your own energy, if need be, to keep things on track. Energy knowledge is power. What we know about our own energy and the energy of others builds over time. This energy knowledge is a crucial part of deepening connections and increasing productivity. Energy expectations are what we expect from ourselves and others, based on our energy knowledge. Harness your networking energy. Determining the situations in which you express your most positive, authentic energy is the key to creating the most fruitful networking opportunities.